Welcome back to the Entrepreneurs Forum podcast. Today we have the absolutely incredible Dr. Ducharme, and I am so excited to share everything about her with you, or as much time as she's willing to share with us, I should say. This woman has built multiple empires, and it is absolutely incredible not to just spend time with her and get to know her, but also to really see what she's done. So welcome, Julie. I am so ecstatic that you are here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I know we were talking a little bit, but can we start with your backstory as to where you began this incredible experience that we call your life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of interesting to reflect back on where things start and where they are. And it's difficult. If you would ask me where I was younger, if I was going to evolve into this, I would have thought you were crazy because that wasn't my plan for what I had for myself. But it's interesting how life experiences shift you in a way to find your passion. And so I really think that kind of all of this started to evolve when I was actually in college. And I come from like a farm town, and I was very excited to have a college scholarship. And I was so excited to be in school because I knew that, that scholarship would allow me to go to college and get to do my favorite thing, which was to play volleyball and basketball. And I was very serious about it. I didn't want to do anything to mess up my scholarship. And one of the important things is you had to get at least a C grade average to be able to play. And so my first class I was taking was an English class, and I was an AB student in high school. And so I just didn't think that I'd have any issues in college. And I got back my first paper from my English teacher in college, and it was a D. And I was a little shocked. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, I'll go talk to him. I must have misunderstood the assignment, be the good student, figure out what I did wrong, so I can do better on the next paper. And so came in to meet him, sat down, and the first thing he said to me was, Julie, you're not smart enough to be in college. You should drop out. And it was like devastating too. I was like 18 or 19 years old. This was my dream to go to college, to play sports. In my mind, I wanted to go on to play in the Olympics. And I was like, I can't get there unless I go to college. And it was so devastating. So I just, picked up my stuff, went to my room, of course, cried. I called my mom. My mom was like, he's an idiot. Go get a tutor. Which I always say moms have such good insight, right? To me, the world was over. To my mom, she was like, just go get a tutor, you're fine, right? And so I did that, of course, and I passed the class, no problem. But something that really stuck with me was his words. And I always say, it's crazy how we let people who don't care about us really impact us with negativity, right? Like we shouldn't care that this random person who doesn't know me, doesn't care about me, said something mean. Why does it matter? But I really held on to that for about 10 years of my life. And that's why I have an 8-page resume and all these crazy things. People always go like, you haven't been alive long enough to do all this. But I was like on this mission in my mind to prove to everyone that I was smart enough. And so, I went on, got my master's and my doctorate, and I played professional sports, and I eventually became a dean and a president over college, and all these accolades at a young age. But when I finally moved into like that really high position, I was like, I don't even know if I want to be here. I just knew that this was the thing I needed to achieve to show everyone that I was smart enough. And the funny thing is that I actually ran into that professor about 10 years later.
That was definitely going to be one of my questions.
Yes. And so he remembered me, and he was like, Julie, like, how are you doing? And in that moment, it was so funny. It was like a movie. I was thinking about all these things. I had these degrees. And at that time I owned 3 companies, and I was, dean over a huge college and all these things. And I had achieved all this stuff. And I realized at the moment, I was like, I've always been smart enough. But it took like that 10 years of that, right? And so, I got to kind of say to him, well, that's Dr. Julie Ducharme. I'm doing just fine. And I got to watch his mouth drop and my husband go like, that was the best mic drop moment ever. And it wasn't really
Agreed with your husband.
Yeah. And it wasn't trying to get revenge or anything. It just felt good to kind of go like, I proved you wrong. And in essence, I could almost thank him for saying something that pushed me to achieve so much. And what's really funny, I'll tell you the good ending of the story is much later in life, I ended up knowing one of his in-laws. They were using one of my companies. And so when we delivered something to the house, he was there, and we ended up becoming friends. And later in his life, when he passed on, I went to the airport and picked up his family, who flew into the funeral, and took him to the house to help out the family. So,
Wow.
it came very full circle where, pretty much it was like you got to let bygones be bygones. But, it was kind of that push, as negative as it was, which pushed me to go after all this stuff, which helped me kind of evaluate like where are my priorities and where I want to go. Like I've achieved all this stuff, but as they say, it's lonely at the top, which is what really pushed me to go and create She Talks, because I really wanted a community to surround me. And I really, really wanted a sisterhood. Having my daughter was a real reality check of like, what legacy am I leaving for her? Who would embrace her if I wasn't here? And so that's kind of the evolution of what that happened is I worked really hard to get to the top and then realized it is lonely at the top. And I really do want to be surrounded by amazing people. And that's kind of where She Talks started.
That is absolutely an amazing story of the last number of years of everything. And that was just absolutely beautiful how you shared that. I love how there are so many things that I'm going to touch on. And I think this goes to, this seems to be a big misconception of being an entrepreneur is that personal growth, that introspective of, I had this experience and how I reframed it, how it made me stronger, I think is one of the most beautiful evolutions to notice about ourselves and the life that we lead, and to really say, wow, that really hurt at the time. And now I see it from such a different perspective. And now I'm this person who can have this relationship and be a part of be a part of their family and how they shaped my life. And it's really goes into the power of words and how you also took those words and you quite literally alchemize them to empower you. And that is absolutely stunning. And also I love that what you shared about your daughter, who would embrace her if you weren't here. That is so beautiful, especially because our culture, there seems to be, especially in social media, there's a very toxic culture, whether you want to say it's in men or in women. There's just a lot of toxicity in there. And when you are running your own business, when you're doing these things with such passion, it can feel very lonely. And the beautiful thing is, and I think this is where social media has supported people. Because, for example, I live in Pennsylvania. I would have never met you if it wasn't for a number of the channels that you and I are a part of because we want to be around other amazing leaders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And the world there is such toxicity in our connections today. And I just think like the authenticity and the vulnerability doesn't exist because it's real easy to be mean behind a screen. And it's so powerful. I mean, that was kind of the kick from She Talks is I saw the cruelty that women were posing on each other. And a lot of times it was just because they had terrible pain in their lives. And culturally, they'd been encouraged to be vicious and vile to survive.
Yeah.
And in my quest with all those things and getting to the top and having that moment of like, I've made it. And then not too long after that going, this is the worst job I've ever had. I don't even want to be here. Right. And then turning to my female counterparts with hopes of having some like collaboration and some support. And it wasn't there. And I was just
Yeah.
like, is this it? Like we just climbed to the top and like we're vile and vicious to each other. And this is success because it doesn't feel like it. And why in the world, like, am I not finding this with women? I mean, I left that big top job probably 6 months afterwards because it was so toxic. My hair was falling out. Became super unhealthy. I mean, I'm an athlete, and it was like I'd never experienced, and I played at top levels with tremendous amount of stress on me, and never been in a situation where I was so unhealthy and just really rethinking life choices, and everyone was like, oh, why would you want to quit? That's such a good job. And I'm like, it's not a good job. It looks great. The title looks great. But yeah, I think that, the toxicity that we're experiencing, and the other I think part of this is when I created She Talks is I told women, leave your religion and your politics at the door. Because when you strip that off, women are just women, and they're not having issues. They're literally just like talking about being a wife and a head of a company, or being a mother and trying to deal with this, or, a new entrepreneur. And so, it's when you mention the toxicity, I feel like it's so powerful, and it's very strong between women right now. I don't really see this between men. I really don't. And I think that's why that was such a push of experiencing it, getting there, making it, and then just being like what's next? I don't have a girlfriend to turn to. I don't have anyone that I can confide in. I don't know how who do I talk to deal with this situation? There was just so much lacking there. And I was just like, women are such amazing people. Like, why are we not coming together? Like, it just
Very much
doesn't make
so.
sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's so interesting because especially when you start to evolve out of your group, and I want to come back to She Talks really quickly and share what that is with people because I'm sure their ears are perked. When you're wanting more and when you're wanting to whether it's more education or wanting to push yourself to a new level and really finding your desire to grow, I often find it that you grow out of the friends that you might have had. So, growing out of your high school friends or growing out of your college friends. And that was not something I had anticipated. And for a while, and yes, you hear, it's lonely on the walk, and then you find your people. But I don't think I really considered what my people looked like or what my group looked like, or really, it was just quite lonely for a period of time because I didn't know what I was looking for other than just I wanted to feel that satisfaction. I wanted to feel understood. And then when you start to see other women like yourself, where they've accomplished so much, and you're like, that's cool. And notice how relatable she is. Notice how personable she is. Because there are plenty of women that are not like that. And that can be kind of a turnoff when you're seeing these entrepreneurs and you're seeing these women lead companies, but they don't have that personable connection. As in, we're going to table our professional conversation and can we talk? Can we talk about something that's going on and be heard and understood and not judged? And I think that's such a beautiful thing that you've created in She Talks and in the community where you wanted to be around and surrounded by other amazing women. That's what that looks like. They're encouraging, they're understanding, they're not judging, they're leaving their religion and politics at the door, which is such a beautiful thing to share with people and to remind them. And we're going to keep going together and we're in this together and we're going to hold each other's hand moving forward in that neutral, supportive, kind, sincere way.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because I always tell people we respect all religions and all politics.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes we allow those to get in the way of just humans being humans, just realizing that we're all human, we all have pain, we all have issues, we all have problems. And it's one of those things that it just kind of strips away and like brings women in just raw and vulnerable and ready to accept, right? Because I have women that like, we probably have opposing viewpoints on like all kinds of stuff, but we're such good friends, it doesn't matter. Like, if that makes sense, right? Like, because I feel like women really got like, I feel culture really divided us, right? Divided women into different groups, right? And the only way that you're going to get the top is if you're mean and vicious and all this stuff, which is really funny because I worked with men my entire career and they've never been mean and vicious.
Yeah.
They never were. So it's really interesting, which you said I touched on She Talks, and I should probably like rewind back a little bit on that. So Lead and Empower Her She Talks was basically my vision after getting out of the corporate world and being so disheartened by the way that women were treating each other. And I just had this vision of like, what if we told our real authentic story? How many walls would it break down? Like, I've met women who were massively abused as children. And so, of course, they have walls up because of that. I've met women who came out of abusive relationships. They were, raped. They like a long list of things, massive trauma. And that massive trauma led them to build walls and to be very like tough and sometimes vicious. But then they would tell you their story and you would be wow, you're a different person. And allowing to tell that story not only broke down the walls between women, but it was very healing for women to finally say, like, listen, this is who I am. This is what I'm dealing with. This is why I have the walls. And so that was really my vision. We said, let's do a conference, basically. And I thought maybe 5 people would show up because all my girlfriends are like, it's such a good idea, but no women are going to show up and like be vulnerable. And I was like, I know, but let's just see. So we had like 100 show up the first conference, and we were like, oh, wow. And then the next year, one of the women who attended conference, they worked at University of San Diego. And so they called me and said, would you do the event here? And I was like, okay, sure. We ended up having 250 women at that event. And we started having these barrier breakers were calling me. This is when like I didn't know. So I just had my phone number on LinkedIn, right? Like I just put everything, phone number, address, everything. I didn't know. It asked for it. I filled it out. So I totally was like, how are these women getting my phone number? So it's very comical, but I was getting these calls from these barrier breakers who are like, we love what you're doing. Like, we want to come. We won't charge you to speak. Can we speak? And I was like, yeah, okay, great. And so we filled, this big hall in the USD, and these women came in and they were just like, this is what we've been looking for. And I was like, okay. And so, we just kind of started growing from there. And my vision was when I played sports, we had a sisterhood, right? So even if I was having issues with a girl on the team, I needed her to be successful because I wasn't successful if she wasn't. And that was really like my philosophy, like, listen, I can be successful, but if you guys are not successful, then we're going to fail because it can't just be one, right? There's this video out right now that one of the car companies made, and it's called One of Many. And it said, what if I didn't have to be the only one, right? Like, what if I didn't have to be the best at this? And the whole idea was that we want so many women that you don't have to be the only one, right? And so that was really my philosophy, is like, I don't have to be the only one that's best at this. I don't have to be the only one that's successful. And so that was really kind of the essence of it. It was like, share your story. Let's find commonality, and let's not be the only person that's best at this, right? Let's build that sisterhood. So it started there 8 years ago. Now we just opened up worldwide in Canada, UK, Ireland, and Australia, and Zimbabwe. And we are becoming a global sisterhood who creates platforms for women to speak. We have an international magazine that goes around the world now. We have, virtual meetings around the world. We have on-ground meetings around the world. We have webinars every month to educate women. We have big name partners coming in to support our group. I can't give those out yet because we're still waiting to sign the contracts, but we're just growing exponentially. And we even now have an AI matching component, which will match women around the world in our group, which makes it a little more granular experience. So women can connect with women around the world, but they do it through an AI matching algorithm. It's kind of like dating for business. So if you would have asked me 8 years ago, oh, Julie, are you going to make this into some global worldwide thing? I would have been like, you're crazy. We're just having a conference. And that's kind of where we're at. So that's a little bit of She Talks and what we're doing.
That is absolutely incredible. And I love how from what you were wanting to experience and to have for your daughter, the community that you created, but at the scale that you created it, just goes to show you how many other women were also wanting and intending the same thing. And it happened to thankfully flow right through you and be executed so beautifully.
Yeah.
That's
Ellen,
incredible.
I think what's really interesting is that around the world, women are all wanting the same thing. Once again, strip away even, I don't want to say the culture, but like strip that all away. Women are all having the same issues. They're all having the same issues. They all have the same wants, the same dreams, the same hopes. And so it's really interesting. I think that's why this is working, right? Because we don't sell from the stage. We're not trying to sell anything. We're literally like, how do we empower? How do we educate? How do I support you? And every time I get a call with someone, they're like, I just don't like, nobody does this. Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you helping me? And once again, I'm like, but if you're successful, I'm successful. And so people don't experience that kindness and that type of help in the regular world. And so I always get women who are kind of like, I don't like, what's the catch? And I'm like, there is no catch. And they're like, I don't understand, you know? And I'm like, I get it. Trust me, I get it. Pardon me. So yeah, it's interesting, but that's something I'm learning is that worldwide, we really as women all have the same hopes and dreams and goals. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Iraq or you're in Australia or you're in the US, women are wanting that. We had a woman who sent a story to us from Iraq. She said, I'm reading your magazine. Like it's the only form of empowerment we have here. I'm reading it in secret. And I have a story to share, but I can't use my name. Would you share it? And we were like, of course, right? I mean, literally, we had a woman reaching out to us in secrecy, begging us to share her story, telling us that she's reading it, right? And when you read her story, she has all the same hopes and dreams of many other women. But because of where she's at in her situation, that's not able for her at that moment, but she has the inspiration. And I was like, it just goes to show you that whether you're in a terrible situation or a great situation. We've met women who have sold their companies for hundreds of millions of dollars, have made it, and they're lonely and they're looking for the exact same thing. And I've also watched multi-millionaire women sit down with stay-at-home moms who want to start a business and like collaborate with them. So it's like, I think it's just interesting that, and I feel like this could be a research study, right? Like
For
taking
sure.
the data and really stripping it away. You look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, and
Yeah.
you think about, everyone's need. Well, it seems to be that the need for like sisterhood and collaboration and connection, tribe, if you will,
Hmm.
right? A
Yeah,
tribe
absolutely.
is up here with like the basic need of everything else in life, right? So like
Yeah.
you could have your food and everything, but if you don't have your tribe, right? Like there
Totally.
seems to
Yeah.
be a disconnect. And so that seems to be a really want of women around the world. They're looking for a tribe and there's culture's not getting in the way, ethnicity is not getting in the way. None of that is getting in the way of women just wanting a tribe. And so, especially as soon as you get outside of the US, because I know everyone in the US kind of thinks like US is the only place that exists. And then you get out of it and you're like, yeah, there's all these other countries and all
Yeah.
these other women who are dealing with all the same things, just sometimes in a different light.
Very
So
much so.
it's very interesting, and I wish, and maybe that's what we do next, right? We take the data and we show the world like this is what's really happening with women, from around the world. So it's interesting, but I hope my hope is that we don't just we're creating a global sisterhood, yes, but how do we? I mean, the stats show women are going to be one of the biggest groups out there for business holders. How do we like explode their businesses, grow their businesses, use each other as business,
Yeah.
there's just so many aspects to this. And, I just look at this as like, this is the legacy that we need to be leaving for our future generations, men or women out there. So it's interesting how it's evolving and what's happening and the barriers that are breaking down, between women and it's probably my newest and be my most toughest challenge, but probably the most rewarding as well.
I love that. That's so beautiful. I think that the for me, the thing that stands out the most when I think of She Talks, when I think of you, is the heart connection and being incredibly educated and having the business mind. You carry the heart, which I think our culture would have us thinking that if you're in business, there's no heart. It's you got to keep that separate, can't connect them. When quite literally your power, your beauty, everything that's flowing through is because of the passion and the compassion that you have, which quite literally continues to show you how widely and wonderfully this is spreading.
Yeah.
That's
And I
incredible.
probably have to say, like, early on in life, I did not have that compassion. I was, bred into the belief that I had to not have emotional intelligence and, fight my way to the top and weakness. There was weakness and kindness. And playing sports, we have to be very emotionally controlled. We can't have a good cry on the court. So I had to really work as a leader to really embrace emotional intelligence, embrace vulnerability, embrace the ability to see past like the suck it up mentality, right? Of like, oh, just suck it up, get
Yeah.
over it, like that was a mentality that I had to have when I played sports.
Hmm.
And in some aspects of business. But I really had to work as a leader to, kind of reform myself to have the ability to have the compassion that I had. And of course, having children always changes that because suddenly you have such a different perspective. You have to have this compassion and you do, and it's something that comes out. But yeah, I definitely would say I'm a reformed person with emotional intelligence and my husband would always say, honey, not everyone runs the race that you run, not everyone runs at your speed, and not everyone has that mentality that you have, and so you have to meet people where they're at. And that was really hard for me as a leader. Like I mean, especially someone who's like, me, where I'm a high achiever, it was like being patient was difficult because I was like, let's just get this done. What's the problem? Why can't we get so I had to really work on a lot of that and really, it's like I had it, but I didn't know how to use it
Hmm.
and how to use it in a way that, I didn't feel like I was being a weak leader or, how do you keep respect? How does someone respect you and balance? So I definitely had to work on that. That was issues because I'm very direct. I'm like, let's get it done. I'm short to the point. That's the business side of me. The high achiever side of me from sports is like, I can't delegate this because no one's going to do it as good as I will, and I really had to learn like how to delegate, how to be a good leader, like how not to micromanage people, So I did a lot of reading. Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey. I love that book. It was such a
Um,
like eye opener to like how he built such a phenomenal business. And then The Culture Map with Aaron Myers, a really great book on how to work with people from different cultures. And my favorite term is reading the air, sitting into a room and reading the air of the situation. So I definitely had to build into the leader I am today. I was a natural leader, but I was not a natural, kind, compassionate leader because I was culturally encouraged to not be like that.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, but I found that when I did embrace being the leader that I am today, people liked me still, and they liked me better, and I had a lot more people who respected me because I just really embraced like me,
Yeah.
just me being me instead of trying to have some other tough facade. So I
Very
definitely
much
say
so.
I'm a reformed leader.
I love that you said that. And, it's so interesting, especially, I grew up in the late 80s and 90s, and we were raised to toughen up, as in you're not supposed to have that strong emotion, but when you do, you're supposed to show everybody that you are in charge. And it was this very big extreme of how to control your emotion, how to push, rather than coming more into what I think, and I least love to hope that this is occurring, this awakening of having this new level of emotional intelligence. And it's much deeper. It's not, going on social media and crying about somebody got my coffee wrong. That's not it. That's not where we want to be really sharing or leaking that kind of energy, but having this level of understanding that says, I'm going through something and it's okay if I talk to a person about it, whether it's a best friend or if it's a mother or if it's a therapist, whatever that looks like for you, it's okay to feel it. And then having to come through with those lessons, that is that personal and personable growth that we experience. And I think it's one of the greatest things, especially when we're in the world of business. I never thought that they were connected. And our culture would love to have you thinking like your brain is over here, your body's over here, your emotions are way over here, and bunny's way out there. Like they're all separate when really it is all together. And we want that to come into as much harmony as possible within us, but also when we're talking about it, when we're having these conversations with other people, we don't want to be necessarily interjecting our opinions. We want to be having a conversation that will move us forward, not saying you need to think this way or you need to think that way. This is how we think, and now we can move forward with that. And that is such a beautiful thing that you quite literally open the door to right from the beginning.
If we, we're all humans, and it humanizes you among your people for them to see when you're having your struggles, good or bad, because then it's like, oh, they're human too. We get people all the time and go, oh, you probably have no problems. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, what? What? Like, of course I have problems. I'm a human. I'm alive.
Very
I
much
have
so. Yeah.
family. I have jobs. Of course I have problems. Life is not perfect, but social media very often makes people think that life is perfect. And I try to do a lot of like talks and lives of like, listen, this is part of being you. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, this is life. And I think as leaders, as business owners, even as politicians, as you name it, if you're in the limelight, being just human, which sounds funny, but like just humanize yourself and have that is so powerful because people respect you more. Um, I think that it gives them more of a comfortableness, right? Like I've always, with all my employees, they've always been willing to come and talk to me and be like, hey, I just need to have a conversation, that's deeper than about work. So I agree with you. I just think it's so important that we do that.
I love that for sure. There are so many spectacular things that you share. When you think of leading from when you were in college to a leader now, how different is your perspective of what you as a leader or even what leading looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of the leading I did obviously was with sports teams. And so it was like leading and trying to inspire and trying to, create teamwork, which I still do today. But I think that I look at people very different because, as I mentioned before, I was looking at it from the perspective of like, are you performing? Like, get your act together, like high level stuff. And now I look at people in the essence of I get to know every single person I work with and I find out about their family or their kids or whatever it is. And so when I approach that situation, it's not just I'm here to lead you and you need to get a job done. I truly care about like those people and who they are and what's happening in their lives, which in turn creates massive loyalty with our companies, respect and loyalty with me. And I mean, I could on one hand count probably, I mean, it's maybe one or two people over 25 years of business that I've had to let go because they just were someone that was like not a great fit or there was some type of vileness there because that's what we do. I mean, even when I'm hiring someone, I really dig into like, who are they? This, and I'll do a full out like, this is who I am. This is my life. This is how I work. If you don't work this way, then it may not be for you. It's funny. I'm drinking out of this Zappos mug here, and this is not an ad for Zappos. I'm not sponsored by them, but something I learned at Zappos, we did a She Talks there and we did a thing for them. And something that's really interesting is they hire all their people on and they make them work every job in the company. After they've worked every job in the company, they say, okay, do you want to stay on or do you want to take this $1,000 and leave? And the whole point of that is that they learn every aspect of the company and they really want to make sure that the people want to work there. And people who don't want to work there, take the $1,000 and go. But most of the time, they say it's very rare that they take that, they stay because they see the essence of the company and what it's all about from every aspect of it. And so I look at my leadership now and I kind of compare it a little bit to like Zappos in that I want to give everyone every aspect of our companies and our lives and what we do and say, listen, if this is for you, like we're all in, we're going to invest in you. And if it's not, it's okay too, because I've learned something else that I thought every woman would want She Talks. Why wouldn't you want a sisterhood? I've learned that not every woman is in a place in their life to accept that, and that's okay. And so, I just look at this and I think about those things and like that's where my leadership is now. Obviously, it's definitely softened from, the years of being in other situations and things like that. But I think most important for me is I try and see the person as a leader. I try and see them as they're not just my worker, they're an actual person who has a life and has great things and bad things. And like, how do we serve them? And in turn, they serve us. So,
I love that. That is so beautiful. And even when I was asking that, I had thought, I'm like, wow, my own definition of being a leader has shifted also. And what we thought when we were younger versus what we think of as ourselves and what we want to continue to embody, but also the great emotional intelligence that comes with it, thankfully. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote that keeps you kind of with your vision, or something that just really stands out where you're like, this is what it's about?
There's so many, and I don't know if I
I
have them
have like
all.
1,500 in my phone at least of
Yeah,
quotes and
yeah.
things
Like
that I
they
love.
are. They're in my phone and in my book and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I have one off the top of my head, but I'll share something kind of funny with you. But I think it's kind of goes with what we're saying. So my grandma Katie, she passed away many years ago, but she was a Southern lady, got married at 16 to my grandpa, who got sent off to war right away for 3 years. And she got married early because she was in a terrible family and stuff. And she's just a very Southern woman. But anyways, she said something comical to me, but with the two things. One was she said, "Julie, you can rest when you're dead."
You have
And
told me that one before that she said
that one,
that.
yeah, I love that one just because, it went with the just idea of hard work, right?
Yeah.
Like she worked so hard. And I think of that very often when sometimes I'm like, oh, I just don't know if I can keep going. And then I think of Grandma Katie and I go, yeah, you're right, Grandma. I'm gonna rest when I'm dead. So it's kind of a comical reminder. But another piece of evidence that she gave me was my grandpa, when got kind of a type of arthritis, which made it impossible for him to work at a certain point. And she never finished high school. She got married at 16, and she ended up finding a job that she worked really well at. But she'd always told me to, find something that I could always fall back on, something that I
Mm,
could always have if something was taken away from me.
yeah.
And not necessarily a quote, but a really great piece of advice. And that kind of helped me find my passion, right? Like what's something that I have that can never be taken away from me, that I could always have, that I could always fall back on. And so I took kind of that piece of advice and implemented that, because jobs come and go, in our lives, jobs come and go. But if we can find that passion, that project or that thing that we love, that we can always fall back on, we always have, then, I think that's an important thing, because, she had those issues where she lost her husband and other things like that, but she found something that she was passionate about that she could always fall back on. And so, not necessarily a quote, but just a piece of advice
For
from her
sure.
that I thought was really a really great piece of advice, is what is that thing that you
It
have that
feels
is
like such a guiding
absolutely,
light.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and of course I'll have to look up quotes. I have so many of them. They're just like stirring in my head, and I'm like, gosh, I can't think of any off the top of my head. So I have them ready.
Aw, those are beautiful. And I feel like You Can Sleep When You're Dead, Grandma Katie would be like an amazing bumper sticker,
Yeah,
or at least something in one of the folders that she
yeah.
talks, and just, something to smile about, especially when we label it Grandma Katie.
Yeah, yeah. She would just love that, she was a tough woman, but really she had a sweet soul. And so
Aw,
I just, she cracked me up, but she made it through. She was kind of, I look at the women like her who were kind of trailblazers, like they had to make it through the tough part of life to get us to where we are today. And
yeah.
so, sometimes it wasn't eloquent, but it was heartfelt. So
Aw,
yeah.
that is, I love that. That is heartfelt. Do you notice now, or when did you notice that you created the legacy that you wanted to leave for your daughter?
Mhm. It's a great question. I think when I hear from other women
Yeah.
about the impact that it makes on them, that really resonates with me. And, we have everything from women saying, hey, this was life changing, seeing their success. I mean, we've even had women who attended events and then afterwards emailed us and said, I was thinking about committing suicide, and I've changed my mind now because I feel like I have a purpose. And so I always tell our women, like, you have no idea where anyone is when they walk into this room, but your impact could be life-saving.
Yeah.
And so, seeing those things and just seeing the success of women is what brings it. My daughter actually spoke on stage for the first time ever when she was 13. She was the youngest speaker, which then opened the door for her to do a TEDx with Dr. Dan. And, that was so powerful for her because she had stage fright and she didn't want to speak on stage, but then gave her the confidence when she spoke there to go do that TEDx, which then gave her more confidence to write her first book. So she's 16 and she's done a She Talks, a TEDx, written her first book, and she's writing another one. And so just that, seeing like how this has helped change her, and women from She Talks poured into her. Dr. Jen, the first woman to coach in the NFL, we were at the event that she was, getting ready to speak, and she was super nervous. And so I go over to Jen, who's this huge barrier breaker there, supporting us. And I was like, listen, she needs to hear from someone other than her mom. I need someone to go like help her. Right. And they jumped in on that. Right. Like, how cool is that? So it's like seeing that legacy already evolving is so huge because it's affecting her life, which now she in turn is affecting others. So I think those moments really kind of brought it full circle of like, okay, wow, like look at, here she is up here at 13 telling moms how to help their daughters with anxiety, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Because I definitely wasn't doing that at 13. So
Yeah.
I think those things have kind of given real light to like, wow, we're making a difference, we're making
Yeah.
change, we're leaving a legacy. And now she's agreed to be our youth ambassador for She Talks. So the hope is to have a speaking event for middle school and high schoolers. So I talked about that and I said, what do you think about doing this and kind of helping grow the youth side of this? So she's going to do that. So yeah, I feel that that's come full circle, and no matter what happens, she's going to keep growing that vision.
That is so cool. Oh my goodness. I hope you're
Yeah.
so proud of everything that you've created.
Uh,
It's absolutely extraordinary from the sports and the schools and She Talks, just everything is just so inspiring.
well, I
And
just feel blessed. So I feel blessed for the opportunities that have been given to me.
yeah. I love I think you probably heard the quote, when you shine, it gives people permission to also shine. And I didn't understand that many years ago, and it's bloomed and evolved, and my perception of it has just grown over the years. And I feel like that is exactly not just what you do, but also what She Talks is doing for so many people, and
Well,
how
thank
it's
you.
leaving such a positive impact. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Well, we have a lot more fun She Talk stuff coming up if
I was
people
gonna
want to be
say, where
involved.
can we
So
we're
yeah,
gonna put that in the show notes.
leadempowerher.com is the best website to go to. We have implemented what's called mini She Talks across the US now. So some have themes, some don't. So we have one actually happening next week in San Diego. It's called Do the Thing. So this is encouraging you to do the thing that maybe you haven't done yet.
Yes.
So it's going to be really, really fun. We have a Women in Construction happening in Montana. And I was actually just talking to another woman before I got on with you about doing one in um, New Mexico. And so they're growing nationwide. So we provide a platform for women to tell their story across US and now internationally. So if you want to be involved in that, just go to our website, leadempowerher.com. It'll give you all the info from our international magazine, which is free online, to everything we're doing. And we hope that you want to get involved and tell your story. So
I love that. That is absolutely beautiful. And we will have those links all in the show notes for our listeners, and we will absolutely be putting that in as many places as we possibly can. So thank you for sharing your incredible light with the world. Thank you for sharing your time with us today and your beautiful insights. And it was a pleasure getting to spend time with you and to talk with you.
well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Till next time, everyone, stay well, and we will see you soon.